Optimistic of a peaceful and credible elections as he receives in audience U.S. ambassador to Nigeria. Defense headquarters describes as an act of blackmail repeated reports about Nigerian military by CNN. Hello and welcome. I am Chinedu Obike. President Goodluck Jonathan has promised to execute more people-oriented projects and exploit the abundant salt mineral resource in Abuja State, southeast Nigeria. President Jonathan said this in Abakaliki while addressing the presidential campaign rally in the state. Correspondent Dennis Adegunloye reports.
Abakaliki Sports Stadium was filled to capacity with dignitaries, women and youths who were on hand to give their full backing to President Goodluck Jonathan. The incumbent leader listed some federal road projects being executed in the state and pledged to ensure their completion. He also noted the state's vast agricultural potential.
Let me reassure my people of Ebonyi State that whatever is due you, my government will do for you. Government has a target that in the next 4 years, we should stop importing rice into this country. And one of the states we are relying on that can perform that miracle is Ebonyi State. Abakaliki rice is already very popular. Agri-revolution is to make sure that we improve on the quality of our farming, the quality of processing our farm produce, whether cassava and so on. And Ebonyi State would surely key into the agricultural revolution.
Other speakers at the Ebonyi rally were the Director General of the Presidential Campaign Committee, the PDP National Chairman, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the Deputy Senate President, and First Lady Dame Patience Jonathan.
Vote on the 14th of February massively without any shadow of doubt for President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. That is the president of the 21st century.
Open your eyes and see clearly. To see clearly the very purposeful leadership that has been exhibited by our leader, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan.
Mr. President has a strong vision for Nigeria as a united, peaceful and prosperous nation. Accordingly, his philosophy of leadership is Nigeria first, Nigerians always. President Goodluck Jonathan has completed the Enugu-Abakaliki-Ikom Road.
We will vote for Goodluck Ebele Azikiwe Jonathan, and we will vote for PDP. Thank you for Nigeria women.
The presidential election is scheduled to hold on Saturday, 14th of February 2015. Dennis Adegunloye, NTA News.
The people of Ebonyi State have been assured that whatever is their due will not be denied them. President Goodluck Jonathan gave the assurance during an interactive meeting with the Traditional Rulers Council in the state. The president, who was in the state for the party's campaign, also solicited the support of the royal fathers and the entire state as he recontests for a second term in office so as to be able to continue and complete the national transformation programs.
We are ready to work with the Ebonyi State. We are ready to partner with the Ebonyi State to make sure that we improve the condition of the people.
Traditional Council, led by the chairman Ezeogo Agomeze, reassured the president of their support at all times, expressing confidence in his leadership and appreciation for the administration's commitment to improve lives and conditions. Still on the campaign trail, President Goodluck Jonathan has given assurance of his intention to improve the lots of women and children in Nigeria if re-elected for another term. The president said during the PDP rally in Abia State. Details of that report will be brought to you later. The surprise visit by President Goodluck Jonathan to Maiduguri, northeast Nigeria, was to enable him get first-hand information to prosecute the fight against insurgency, and provide financial assistance to the displaced persons to enable them rebuild their homes. Presidential spokesman Ruben Abati said this while briefing newsmen on the president's visit. Mia Ogidi reports.
The presidential spokesman Ruben Abati observed that the unveiling of the cenotaph for deceased officers in the military cemetery, the various activities lined up to mark the 2015 Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and the visit to Maiduguri to spend a day with the injured military officers and the internally displaced persons within 1 week by President Goodluck Jonathan is a clear pointer to the fact that the present administration recognizes the indelible contributions of the officers, both past and living.
This is not about politics. This is about a president, a commander-in-chief of the armed forces, rallying the troops, encouraging them, motivating them, reassuring them, and also, addressing the families of those that may have died, and also going to the hospital to visit those that are injured, and also visiting ordinary civilians who have been displaced to reassure everyone. And I think that it's a great inspirational move and, a good demonstration of commitment, of leadership, and a sense of duty on the part of President Jonathan.
With the visit to the troubled area, President Goodluck Jonathan is placed on a sound footing to provide the needed financial and material resources to prosecute the fight against insurgency.
President Jonathan has consistently stayed focused. The security forces are duly empowered to be able to perform to their optimum ability, and also to ensure that those who are affected, are provided for. This is the same president who launched the presidential initiative in the Northeast. This is the same president who launched the Victim Support Fund. This is the same president who launched the Safe Schools Initiative. And this is the same president who has continually demonstrated a readiness to work with government at other levels to ensure that all of the issues that come up are addressed. This is also a president who has mobilized regional coalition, regional support, international solidarity and cooperation in addressing this challenge.
While commending the government and people of Borno State for the warm reception accorded the president, Mr. Ruben Abati reminded Nigerians that the fight against insurgency can only be won if everybody close ranks and support the government. In Abuja, Mia Ogidi, NTA News.
We now bring you the report on the president's visit to Umuahia, Abia State, where he gave assurance of his intention to improve the lots of women and children in Nigeria if re-elected for another term.
Long before the arrival of the presidential campaign train to Umuahia, the township stadium located right in the heart of the capital city had filled up with the PDP supporters and admirers of the candidates. Obviously elated by the rousing reception accorded him, President Goodluck Jonathan spoke to the people, enumerating his achievements and assuring them that more will come if he is re-elected for another term in office.
I said that I'm not enough. Let me first thank the women of this country for the support you have given to us. This government is one government I can say that we have the highest support. Talking about support from you. You supported us. 2011, you had your own rallies. You had zonal rallies in the 6 geopolitical zones. That was the first time women had political rallies to support a presidential candidate. And in addition to the zonal rallies, you also visited some states and have state rallies, mobilized Nigerian women, and you supported us.
Details of that story will be brought to you tonight at 9. The Defense Headquarters has described as an act of blackmail a report repeatedly aired by the CNN about the Nigerian military. In a statement in Abuja, the Director of Defense Information, Major General Chris Olukolade, noted that the report smacks of a conspiracy against Nigeria's security. He reiterated the resolve of the Nigerian government and the leadership of the Nigerian army to remain focused in the fight against the insurgency, and condemned in strong terms what he called propaganda against the nation. Moving on, in spite of the anxieties and fears being expressed ahead of the 2015 general elections, Nigeria is fully prepared for the conduct of a peaceful exercise. Senate President David Mark gave the assurance while in audience with the United States Ambassador to Nigeria, James Entwistle. National Assembly correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
The Senate President told the American envoy that the nation's electoral umpire, INEC, is well equipped with men and material resources for the polls. Nigerians, he also said, are ready, more conscious of their rights and indeed the values of their votes. Senator Mark said security operatives are more than ever equipped to contain prevailing challenges of security for a peaceful conduct of the elections.
We are truly prepared for democracy in this country, and I think we imbibe the ethics and the ethos of democracy. We look forward to a very successful, free, fair, transparent, and credible. Because once it's free, fair, and transparent, the credibility is automatic. So I think we will work together for the benefit of both countries.
Absolutely. The U.S. ambassador acknowledged that Nigeria is heading towards a great democratic exercise which the global community is looking forward to with keen interest.
Very heartening to me is it's clear the Nigerians don't need to hear this from me. They've already taken up this idea of nonviolence and transparency and holding public officials accountable and so on. It's clear that those issues are already well embedded in the Nigerian political psyche.
The ambassador described the signing of a pact for a violent-free elections by all the principal contenders as appropriate and reassuring. In Abuja, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
In another development, political and social groups have continued to lend their voices to the achievements of President Jonathan's administration. A group started this when it visited elder statesman Edwin Clark at his residence in Abuja. Uchenwizu has the details.
As Nigeria counts down to the 2015 general elections, stakeholders, political and non-political groups have stepped out campaigns for their choice candidates. The residents of elder statesman Edwin Clark played host to two youth groups who are in solidarity with the continuation of President Goodluck Jonathan's administration. Members of the North Central PDP Youth Network and the Middle Belt Youth Leaders both pledged support for the re-election of President Jonathan. They above all appealed to President Jonathan to look into the plight of the minority groups in the country.
We are confident that Goodluck Jonathan has that ability of transforming this country.
The votes of 2011 showed it all, that it is the Middle Belt that determined who became the president. So we want to do it again.
So one of the greatest assets of Jonathan's administration is the development of democracy.
The youths said they are out to impact positively in deepening democracy by ensuring credible, free and fair elections in the February polls. Uche Rinsu, NTA News.
Motorcycle Drivers and Riders Association of Nigeria has reaffirmed its members' resolve to support President Goodluck Jonathan in the forthcoming general elections. The association's national grand patron, Reverend Yusuf Ame Obaje, confirmed this during an emergency meeting of the association held in Abuja. Correspondent Rotimi Oluwagbemini's report is here presented.
In an address, The Choice Before Us, Reverend Yusuf Obaje urged his members to come out en masse and vote for President Goodluck Jonathan. He said, the choice before every Nigerian is between recreating a new Nigeria through building on the existing foundational pillars of development or abandon all such efforts made so far and elect those who will start all over again with an entirely new agenda.
We must admit that the last 4 years of President Jonathan's administration have witnessed rehabilitation, reconstruction, restructuring, relaying, rebuilding, and repositioning of developmental foundation for a new Nigeria of our collective dream. That is why those of us in Nakmoran are convinced, one step at a time. Once it is consistent, we will continue to move and move and move and move until we realize our dream.
The meeting was attended by all the associations, national and state executive.
You're watching the news reaching you from NTA International, from Abuja, Nigeria. For a review of the top stories, you heard that the presidential campaign rally of the PDP has moved to southeast Nigeria with a promise by President Jonathan to execute more people-oriented projects and to exploit the abundant salt mineral resource in Abuja State. We also told you that Senate President David Mark, while in audience with the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, said in spite of the anxieties being expressed ahead of the 2015 general elections, is optimistic of peaceful and credible exercise. Still to come, Nigerian government to generate $68 billion in foreign direct investment from new license-free trade zones. Stay tuned for these and other stories.
Nigeria, we the people decree that the power of evil secrecy shall fail.
All Nigerians should understand that a divided Nigeria can only mean catastrophic consequences for the entire black race. We all African countries count on you, and you are our beacon of hope.
That when Nigeria sneezes, all of us will catch cold.
All of us who look to Nigeria for lessons and inspiration never cease to thank God for this wonderful gift to Africa.
Nigeria enjoys the respect, the admiration, the friendship, and the hope of an entire continent.
The powerhouse of Africa.
Nigeria.
Unite and build Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria.
A message from protectors of Nigerian posterity.
The news continues. As campaigns for 2015 elections heighten, Nigerians have been urged to demand from politicians practical ways of boosting the nation's economy, tackling insecurity, and providing basic facilities. Correspondent Joseph Orok reports on a town hall meeting on 2015 elections organized by Agenda Nigeria in Abuja.
Political campaigns for 2015 elections have to a large extent been dwelling more on characters of central actors and promises, but without saying how these promises can be actualized. This Agenda Nigeria says should not be the case, as Nigeria demands pragmatic solutions to some of the lingering socioeconomic and political challenges in the country. Speaker after speaker at a town hall meeting on the theme, driving issue-based campaigning for the 2015 elections, harped on strategies for achieving a new Nigeria through the creation and deployment of strategic framework that will empower the electorate to enjoy good governance from politicians.
We are faced with issues in this country. We want every candidate to tell us what they do. Take, for example, power sector, which I lead. I know what we have done. I know what the challenges are. Now, if you're going to come and talk about 24/7 power for Nigerians, we want just to ask you, what will you do better than they are doing? How will you get Nigeria to have 20 megawatts in the next year without building power plants, without going through the process of financial closure? So we want Nigerians to be given the facts and the evidence to judge who among the candidates can better lead them.
See how we get our politicians, our candidates to come down to having a conversation around education, around corruption, around infrastructure. Not just in a vague development, not in a vague sense, in the sense in which you see it being promoted, but coming down to say, when you say development, what are you actually talking about? How do you want to deal with the issue?
Participants stressed the need for politicians to find ways of matching promises with action in the interest of the masses.
This issue-based should have something to do with the masses, because all this program structure,
what's going to happen? We need more infrastructure.
work. We need work for the youth. The youths there's so many youths now that don't have work. We need work for the youths. The market women, how do we improve on the market women? How do we improve on our general society?
The forum advised Nigerians to avoid supporting politicians based on ethnicity, religion, and other sentimental factors. In Abuja, Joseph Orok, NTA News.
Moving on, the Nigerian media came under scrutiny at an interactive session for state and non-state stakeholders to explore the role of the media in promoting national unity, peace, cohesion, and capacity to mitigate in an election period. Correspondent Anthony Forsen reports.
The 2015 general elections has elicited a high degree of interest with concerns of how credible it will be. Hence, the fear of violence, especially with statements credited to politicians. So, at this forum, it was clear that the power, influence, and role of the media as a tool for development cannot be jettisoned.
There's too much assumption that the media has the answer to all of our problems, to all of the issues. And from my own perspective, the public itself also holds itself the obligation of actually beginning to ask questions in appropriate places.
While not attempting to insulate the media from blame, expectations from practitioners are high.
We should know that the media has a responsibility to challenge information that is the media that is not correct. You cannot just disseminate information in the media that is wrong.
With the elections fast approaching, how can the media stand out despite its enormous challenges?
Every government agency must pay all the staff under it. Every private organized media houses must also take adequate financial responsibility to pay all the staff. With this, you will sanitize press freedom, and you get a better reportage of all that is happening in the country, and I believe that will serve us and will be a model to other African countries like they call us big brother. And I thank you.
Out of their ways, out of their difficulties. They cannot say because they have difficulties they are not going to perform what they have set themselves out to perform, to inform, to make the society better, to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And I think that is the major role that the media should be playing. And if you have to undertake that responsibility, you have to undertake it fully conscious of your own constraints, and the constraints are many.
The overall expectation is for the media to remain professional and ethical in the coverage and reporting of the 2015 general elections. In Abuja, Anthony Forsen, NTA News.
Another development, the federal government plans to generate $68 billion foreign direct investment from 8 newly licensed free trade zones. Managing Director, Nigerian Export Processing Zones Authority, Gbenga Kuye, announced this in Abuja. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday reports.
The federal government of Nigeria keyed into the free trade zone with the purpose of attracting investors and boosting job creation potentials for Nigerians.
The Samsung Heavy Industries project being done out of Lador, the first FPSO to be fabricated in the country, is going to happen in one of our free zones. And you know what that means, the number of technicians, the number of welders, the number of artisans that will come to bear. They used to fabricate this thing out of Korea before and bring them to the country. Of course, creating jobs there.
Mr. Gbenga Kuye said the approval for the new zone is in line with the transformation agenda of the present administration to provide a solid foundation for a stronger economy and greatly improve the standard of living of Nigerians.
Across Atlantic, 500 hectares of that area now has been designated to create a block where you can say you have the first ever international commerce city in the world.
The free zones are Centenary City Free Zone for business and tourism, Ogogoro Industrial Park, Lagos for oil and gas activities, and Nigeria International Commerce City, Lagos, amongst others. In Abuja, Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
All schools in Guinea closed for fears of Ebola to reopen on Monday. More than half of Kenya hit by a power outage early on Friday, and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrives Paris to express America's solidarity with the French people following last week's terrorist attacks. Details of these and more with Kemi Fakeye.
All schools in Guinea will reopen on Monday after being closed amid the deadly Ebola outbreak. Guinea's Health Minister Remy Lamali told newsmen in Ghana that the action is being taken because the situation has improved. More than half of Kenya, including the capital, Nairobi, suffered a power outage early on Friday after a major transmission line failed. According to Kenya Power, which is the country's sole electricity distributor, the blackout resulted from a system disturbance on a 220 kV transmission line running between Nairobi and Okaria, about 100 kilometers northwest of the capital. Pope Francis has issued his strongest defense of church teaching to oppose artificial contraception. At a rally in Manila, Pope Francis urged families to be sanctuaries of respect for life. The Pope is billed to travel to the Central Philippines to comfort survivors of the 2013 Typhoon Aya, which left more than 7,300 dead and leveled entire villages. Kemi Fakeye, NTA News.
And just before we go, let's join Ayodeji Makinde on Sports Update.
All is set for the kickoff of the 30th edition of Africa's most prestigious football tournament, the Africa Cup of Nations, scheduled for Equatorial Guinea, Saturday, January 17 to February 8. Hosts Equatorial Guinea take on Congo Brazzaville in the opening match built for the coastal city of Bata Saturday, while Burkina Faso later face Gabon in Group A. 16 nations grouped into 4 will is accounting for a total of 32 matches across 4 venues, namely Bata, Malabo, Mongomo, and Benin. It will be recalled that Morocco declined to host the competition due to the spread of the dreaded Ebola virus disease, but Equatorial Guinea, which co-hosted the 2012 edition with Gabon, came to the rescue. In the absence of the defending champions, Nigeria Super Eagles, as well as Egypt and Morocco, enthusiasts believe that the current edition will spring up surprises.
You are ready to watch the best of African football, what makes African football tick, what you can't get anywhere else in the whole wide world. Whatever, be it Europe, South America, Asia, you don't get the style of African style of play in anywhere else. So it's going to be on display, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Meanwhile, Nigeria Super Eagles will take on the Yemeni national team Saturday in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, in the second of the 2-legged international friendlies. The team, presently under the tutelage of assistant coach Daniel Amokachi, lost narrowly by a 1-0 to the Elephants of Cote d'Ivoire last weekend. Organizers of Rio 2016 Olympic Games say 70% of tickets will be reserved for residents of Brazil, and fans are to register online as sales begin in March 2016. With Sports Update, Ayodeji Makinde, NTA News.
And that's it from here. Thanks for being there.